I rise today in support of President Trump's nomination of Indiana's Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court of the United States. In the coming days, Americans will hear a great deal about Judge Barrett. Much of it from people who've never met her, who've never worked with her. But as a fellow Hoosier, I've had the privilege of actually getting to know Judge Barrett and her family, and to understand the breadth of her intellect and the thoughtful reasoning of her work. My own opinions have been informed by my personal interactions with her and supported by the countless students, clerks, and former colleagues who, despite their varied political beliefs, are united in their admiration for Judge Barrett. They will second what I tell you here. Coney Barrett's qualifications to fill this seat are beyond question. The character she will demonstrate once in it will be exceptional. Her career is beyond distinguished. She graduated magna cum laude from Rhodes College, summa cum laude from Notre Dame Law School in South Bend, Indiana. She was highly decorated while doing both, including Dean's Award recognition and Best Exam in numerous courses. She held prestigious clerkships for Judge Lawrence Silberman on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, and for the late Justice Antonin Scalia on the U.S. Supreme Court. She is a respected educator, teaching for nearly 2 decades at Notre Dame's Law School, where she was named Distinguished Professor of the Year 3 times. In 2017, she was nominated to fill a vacancy in the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit. And I have to say, I was incredibly pleased by her nomination to the federal bench, and I was proud to vote for her confirmation. And I wasn't alone in my esteem for Judge Barrett. During her confirmation process, those students and colleagues, former and current, came forward with words of support and praise by the score. They described her as fair and decent, brilliant and generous. They were struck by her integrity, her impartiality, and her temperament. And they spoke of her dedication to teaching students not how to think, but how to think for themselves. They recalled the long lines extending outside of her office of those students who sought and were always given advice and mentoring. And though they came from different backgrounds and held differing views, they came together as a chorus to say this: Coney Barrett possesses exactly the type of mind and the strength of character America's constitutional system relies on. I agreed then, and I still do. Just 3 years ago, I didn't hear a single credible criticism of Judge Barrett based on her legal qualifications, and I don't anticipate hearing one now. She will be guided by the law and precedents. She will be faithful to the Constitution. As compelling as the testimonies of those who admire her are, it's through her own words that we can see the type of Supreme Court justice Coney Barrett will be. A judge is obligated to apply the law as it is, and not as she wishes it would be, Judge Barrett has said. She is obliged to follow the law even when her personal preferences cut the other way, or when she will experience great public criticism for doing so. Now, it's important for Americans to understand her qualifications for the Supreme Court and her fidelity to the Constitution. But they should also know a bit about her life away from the bench. When I met her, it was quite obvious that Amy Coney Barrett was less interested in cataloging her professional accomplishments and more inclined to discuss family and the accomplishments of her children, who she clearly loves so very much. Judge Barrett and her husband Jesse have been married for over 20 years now. Their family is a large one and a loving one. They're parents to 7 children. Their youngest son has special needs. They've twice adopted, both times from Haiti. Judge Barrett has asked, what greater thing can you do than raise children? That's where you have your greatest impact on the world. It's clear, not just from those words, but from simply spending a few moments with this beautiful family, that this is her life's joy and her greatest point of pride. How absurd, then, to see described as some here and in the media see her described as anti-health care. It's the opposite, exactly, actually. As the head of a large household, Amy Coney Barrett knows full well, and better than most of her detractors, how important medical coverage is to every American's health, and to their peace of mind, too. And this includes insurance for those with pre-existing conditions, which Republicans have time and time again committed to protect while working to make health care more affordable and more accessible. Now, with all of this is actually not why Judge Barrett was nominated or why she belongs on the Supreme Court. And let us be truthful, it's also not the real reason why those who oppose her do so, and do so with such rage. In the absence of actual objections to Amy Coney Barrett's resume, they've rummaged through and purposely warped Judge Barrett's record. They've warped her legal writings to position her as the mortal enemy of Obamacare. This is a lie. Now, her scholarship, if properly read, rather than quickly mined for propaganda, reveals no such thing. For 30 years, Democrats have continually cried wolf, painting every Republican Supreme Court nominee as the end of the republic, hoping always to scare the American people to their side. And just as we witnessed 2 years ago, when their lies run out of believers, the lies grow more reckless. This is a dangerous game to play right now. Doubly so for the party that's blocking health care legislation during a pandemic. Judge Barrett hasn't been nominated to the Supreme Court to make policy. Some seem to have forgotten, but that's our job. President Trump selected her not only because of her sharp mind and impressive qualifications, but because she won't legislate from the bench. That's the whole point. Of course, there are others who may take a different, even darker tack. To them, none of this matters. Not the impeccable credentials, not the ringing endorsements, not that she's a role model of an accomplished professional and a loving mother, not that she's been described as mind-blowingly intelligent and one of the most humble people you will ever meet. None of it. We'll hear from them in coming days, likely in this chamber. We'll hear a lot from them. And if past is prologue, they may choose to focus instead on Judge Barrett's religious beliefs not out of any deep conviction, but out of desperation. They may argue that it's impossible to live a life of faith and uphold the law. They may create a caricature of Judge Barrett that has no relation to reality, and one that reflects their own intolerance, not hers. It is regrettable that in 2020, we must still repeat this refrain. We do not have a religious test for public service in the United States of America. And we never have. It's true. Judge Barrett is a faithful Catholic. It's true. So too are 5 current Supreme Court justices. So too are millions of Americans. To argue that this prohibits her from sitting on the Supreme Court is nothing short of religious bigotry. In 1793, George Washington penned a letter to the members of the New Jerusalem Church of Baltimore, Maryland. In it, Washington outlined one of the principles that makes America so unique. A man's religious tenets, he wrote, will not deprive him of the right of attaining and holding the highest offices that are known in the United States. Now, happily, 200 years later, we now apply Washington's equation regarding the holding of high office to both men and women. It's unfortunate, though, that 2 centuries later, we must still be reminded that every American can worship and pray as they please, and no doors of opportunity shall be closed because of it. And there's this. Since our founding, 114 Americans have sat on the Supreme Court. Only 4 of them have been women. Are those who oppose this president and this pick really willing to use religious prejudice as an excuse to oppose confirming the 5th? Come on. If so, the faith of my colleagues should be worried about isn't Judge Barrett's, but the American people's in this institution. In the coming weeks, I hope we don't regress into religious bigotry. And I hope that the Senate can move past the personal attacks of some past nominees and instead focus on the professional qualifications and judicial comportment of Judge Barrett. We're constitutionally obligated to provide our advice and consent to the president on his judicial nominees. My hope, and perhaps it is a naive one, is that we will fulfill that responsibility by holding hearings that are informative rather than destructive. Not unlike those that led to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's bipartisan confirmation in 1993. And if the Senate does this, and we consider Judge Barrett's qualifications, she will be confirmed and subsequently serve with great honor, distinction, and she'll do the American people proud. Both the High Court and our country will be better for it. Mr. President, I note the absence of a quorum.